I don't know if you've noticed, but it's been a while since we had a new computer from Wahoo. Well, wait no longer, because this is the new Element Ace. It's huge, literally, but it also has a big rival in the form of the Garmin's Edge 1050. Both have a host of cool tech and represent the best of what each brand can muster right now. So, which should you buy? Assuming for a moment that you're not married to either brand, I reckon the Wahoo Element Ace is probably the new king of the block. But it's a close run thing. Let's dive in. Let's start with features, because there's one on the Wahoo that got loads of attention when it was leaked a few months ago. It's this wind sensor. It works by measuring wind speed and comparing it to ground speed. If wind speed is faster than your ground speed, obviously you're riding into a headwind. If wind speed is slower, you're probably enjoying a tailwind or riding in the shelter of a group. Wahoo says it helps to offer an explanation as to why a ride might feel particularly easy or hard at times. Is this a gimmick though? I mean, we can all feel whether we're riding into a headwind or tailwind, so do we really need a sensor and a metric for that? As things stand, things aren't as refined as they could be. The sensor can't measure crosswinds given its position on the front, and it's limited to live by the second feed to your screen. So the reading is constantly jumping around as the wind tends to do. It also can't yet tell you anything about your drag coefficient, which we had our fingers crossed for when the device leaked. Aside from confirming that you ought to seek shelter in a group to make your ride easier, I'm not sure what it can tell you that you can't already feel. That said, Wahoo says it has plans to develop the tech, confirming that the sensor could be used to measure drag in the future, plus apply the data to create planning tools like wind maps. But there's no timeline on when we can expect either. It also says that pro teams have shown real interest in using the data to help them coach their riders to better riding habits, teamwork and tactics. I can definitely see that, and I must admit it's a nice thing to have, a new source of data to pore over, although I don't know if it's actually going to make a tangible difference to our rides yet. The Garmin, on the other hand, has plenty of good features, but again, a couple of its latest gizmos frustrate me right now. The 1050's hazard warning feature, which allows you to leave markers for things like potholes and dogs that like to chase you, only work on a select number of devices, and obviously not everyone owns one. Likewise, Garmin's group ride features, where you can see where your group members are, message each other and compete, is a nice idea, but it's also limited to certain devices. Basically, lots of people have to be using them to make them worthwhile, and right now, they're not. Overall though, I'll give the win to Wahoo here, because I think the wind sensor is the most innovative. No other computer brand is offering anything like this, and it doesn't completely rely on a large portion of the market using one to meet its potential. Now, these are two flagship GPS computers and they come with prices to match. That said, the Wahoo is £100, dollars and euros cheaper. Of course, there are smaller and older units from both that will do everything you need them to do for much less money. They also both come with pretty hefty battery life claims. That said, achieving anything close to Garmin's 60 hours max claim means you'll need to engage the device's power save features, including reducing the backlight, reducing GPS bands and sensor connections, and even turning off the mapping. In reality, I've seen little more than 20 hours battery life when everything is switched on, and I'm using the majority of the computer's recording features. Wahoo says it wanted to prioritise battery life with all its features and connections activated though, rather than limiting the device's functionality to get there. So, the Element Ace doesn't have a dedicated battery save mode, and this means it can't reach the same top-end battery life of the Garmin. With the same sensors connected, I found it will last between 25 and 30 hours based on the limited time I've had with the unit so far. If I wanted the device with the best battery life, without sacrificing features, as I suspect most riders do, the Wahoo is the way to go. Getting started with either computer is simple. And while this used to be one of Wahoo's strong points, things are closer now. There are nuances in the procedure for each, but the general procedure is pairing your phone via Bluetooth, downloading the relevant companion app, and running through the phone prompts to either set up a new account and preferences or syncing your data from a pre-existing account. From this point on, you're good to go. Linking Garmin Connect and Wahoo accounts to third-party apps such as Strava is easy too. Prior to testing the Wahoo Element Ace, I needed to start from scratch because I didn't have the latest Wahoo app downloaded or an account set up. I already had an active Garmin Connect account, so I could sync my personal data and pages across in one go for the Edge 1050. This is a big improvement on the setup of older Garmin devices, so if you're looking to upgrade from one of them, the setup should be way easier than it used to be. But in short, the setup procedures really are as easy as each other, and unless you know you prefer one over the other for a particular reason, this shouldn't really be a decision maker. After all, once everything's set up, you shouldn't have to do it again. All right, the user interfaces. What I want from a top-tier bike computer is a speedy experience with no page lag or long load times for things like maps. I also want stuff in a logical order and the ability to change data points easily. The Wahoo uses its existing multi-function 3-button interface with additional toggle and power buttons on the side and pairs this with a new touchscreen. Don't worry, I can hear some of you raging at that news, but honestly it works well, and if it stops working properly in the rain, then you can just use the buttons. Garmin, on the other hand, has been using touchscreen tech for years and supplements this with a dedicated stop-start, lap and power buttons. However, unlike the Edge 840, you don't get the physical page toggle buttons. The key takeaway is that the Garmin's buttons functions are defined, while the 3 buttons on the Wahoo change function depending on what screen you're looking at. I think the Garmin is a little faster to load and refresh. It also starts up quicker from the off, but the differences are small. In neither device can you rely solely on the touchscreen though. Both require you to use the physical buttons to start and pause a ride. Fans of on-device simplicity will appreciate the fact that much of the customization for the Wahoo ELEMNT ACE must be done in the app. Some, understandably, don't want the maze of menus found in the Garmin. But if I want to change a data field while riding, I can do so very easily on the Garmin. On the Wahoo, you have to pull your phone out. They both go about screen customization a little differently. With the Edge 1050, you enter the profile and page editor on the device and select how many fields you want and can decide what you want to display in each of those fields. In the Wahoo, each screen's fields are organized by a priority system in the app, so you can toggle the zoom to show more or less of them while riding. While you can set up more pages to show specific groups of data on both devices, the Wahoo system feels slightly more complicated to me because you're locked into the priority order unless you stop and change it on your phone. I think I personally prefer the Garmin's user interface, but to be honest, I think this is also down to the fact that I've used it more over the past few years. In reality, both are very usable, and I think it's going to be like iPhone versus Android or Mac versus Windows. The one you're most familiar with is likely to be the easiest to use. Given this, the fairest result is a draw. While both will guide you around a route really well, the Wahoo ELEMNT ACE has a clearer map, mainly because it uses plain white lines for all but the largest main roads, with relative sizes suggested by the width of those lines. The extra screen width also means a little more surrounding context, which I like. The road lines on the Garmin appear less clear, I think, while road names can fit awkwardly next to them, making the map feel more crowded. Now, when you're just toggling around on the screen, it's fine, but the difference shows itself a little bit more on the road. Routing for both is easy though, with the ability to navigate home or to a location right on the device. Both reroute quickly when asked and neither nag you to make a U-turn for too long when you decide to cut a corner off your planned route. The Wahoo has led me astray once so far by directing me down a footpath on a road ride, although ignoring this quickly pushed it to find a more suitable route. I personally prefer the purple breadcrumb line Garmin offers to show the way, but Wahoo's distinctive chevron design is easy to follow too. You can create custom routes on the Garmin, although I personally find this process quite time-consuming and imprecise. Really, you're still best creating routes on a laptop and then syncing them over. Oh, and GPS signal quality is bang on for both units. I had 0 issues, no GPS drift. For its map clarity, at least, the Wahoo pinches it. All right, let's address the element in the room, literally. The Wahoo is a huge device and quite a bit bigger than the Garmin, which is already a pretty chunky bit of kit. This comes from its use of a large battery, the wider screen and the wind sensor. It's also almost 50 grams heavier than the already hefty Garmin. What they do with the size is crucial though. The Garmin screen has a slightly higher resolution, although I've found this isn't really noticeable on the bike. The best feature of either screen is the matte surface on the Wahoo, because it practically eliminates reflections. The Garmin screen is far more reflective, and I found this can be quite distracting when riding under a dappled tree cover or if it happens to catch the sun. Garmin's decision to opt for a transmissive LCD display makes the colours and contrast appear more vivid than on the Wahoo, which uses a transflective display. Basically, this helps reflect the sunlight back onto the inner screen layer, which helps reduce reliance on a backlight, contributing to that high battery life that I mentioned earlier. The Wahoo ELEMNT ACE's extra screen width and lack of distracting reflections make it my winner, although you have to be prepared to put up with its sheer size. Okay, now the tricky job of picking a winner. The reality is that both are excellent flagship computers, but to be honest, I wouldn't be buying either right now. I'd opt for the Edge 840 or Element Roam V2 with my own money. They're much cheaper and just as good at showing you your essential recording data. Assuming you have the budget though, and want the latest and greatest unit, if I had to choose a winner between these, I'd tell you to buy the Wahoo. I think the potential of the wind sensor is more interesting than Garmin's group ride and hazard features at the moment, and it's also a little cheaper. Now obviously, you'll also want to consider your existing ecosystem. If you have a few products from one brand already, getting them all to work with each other is easier if you stick with that brand, and not to mention cheaper if you already own them. That could easily be enough to swing your decision the other way. Now, you can read my detailed reviews of both of these devices on BikeRadar.com right now. And if you want to find out more about the Garmin Edge 840 Solar instead, click here. Thanks for watching though, and don't forget to tell me what you think of these latest computers. See you next time.